So it goes race, 2 weeks, race, 2 weeks, race. Total of 3 races with 2 weeks in between.
Yeah.
A not uncommon format for like a series of racing.
No, I think it's pretty ideal too. So he doesn't even have to maintain fitness for a straight 6-week block. Rather, he needs to be sharp for 2 weeks, and then he gets to take 2 weeks to what we'll discuss, and then be sharp for 2 weeks, and then repeat. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Because you're going to ideally carry your highest level fitness into that first event following a taper. So, the freshness should be high as well. You're going to go out and bury yourself over the course of a single event and then spend a week convalescing and then a week sharpening and then do it again.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to. So the fitness you've brought into that first event is going to be the fitness you probably carry out of the last one. There's not going to be a heck of a lot of change in it over the course of it, assuming you don't overdo it during those 2 weeks in between each of these events, which is a really common temptation, or a temptation a lot of us face.
Yeah.
You think that went really well, I'm rested, I'm going to build just a little more fitness for this next one, and you end up doing too much such that you go into that event a bit hampered.
So the week after the race, what does that week look like?
It depends on how great a toll the race itself took on him. So if Dan, you come out of it feeling just completely shattered, it's probably going to be a day or two off the bike, followed by a day or two of easing back into it. And then maybe you're not doing anything even resembling intensity until that first weekend. And then the second week would just be basically a repeat of either of those taper weeks.
What does easing back into it look like?
It can be
in terms of like the intensity or duration.
Yeah,
of the
intensity,
workouts.
workout names, percentage FTP, duration.
Again, based on how fatigued he is, but something maybe as simple as 60 minutes of pedit, where you ride at roughly 65% of threshold, just get on the bike for an hour, spin the legs, see how you feel. Then, based on that, you feel great. So you can dive right back into it. You still feel a little not so hot, maybe a repeat of pedit or something even shorter. Maybe the next day, just a 30-minute easy spin, and then again, by the time the weekend rolls around, maybe you feel ready to do a set of over-unders or some VO2 max repeats or whatever suits the demands of the event.
I like the idea of like a feeler workout before you do it. Because I find that if I go really deep, I have a lot of problems recovering from an event. And I might say, Saturday, I'll be fine by Saturday, and I'll take the whole week off, and then I do the workout Saturday, and I'm still not fine.
Yeah. And jumping back into it is super hard, both physiologically and psychologically too. To go from doing nothing for a couple days and then diving right into a hard workout, I seldom, if ever, recommend that, just because it's kind of demoralizing on a psychological level. And physiologically, there's certain things you're just not primed to work that hard. You need to ease back into it. And even if that takes place over the course of a single day, that one ride that precedes that next hard ride is well worth how well that next hard ride will go.
Something I would add to this too is in this phase of kind of diagnosis that you do in that week after the race, to kind of make sure that you're feeling good enough to do the planned training or adjust as needed. I feel like there's a temptation to just err on the side of entire rest. And in some cases it might be good, but you can learn so much from just an easier workout. You can really learn a whole lot about like, hey, you know what? Okay, maybe I actually can do more than I thought I could, and my body is okay. I feel a little bit tired, but I'm okay. It's just you can either do nothing and leave it to chance and guess, and then, like you said, find out on Saturday if you can go hard. But that I feel like it's a safer bet in most cases, unless you're feeling extremely run down, to do one that might be a little bit easier to kind of get check the temperature, so to speak.
And definitely don't do nothing. I mean, don't take that 2 weeks as just, I'm going to race again in 2 weeks. I'm just going to rest until then. I promise that won't go well.
I like could they, instead of pedit like a 60-minute aerobic, could they also do like taku, a 30-minute aerobic, especially based on the person's experience?
Yeah, based on their experience and based on their level of fatigue.
Yeah.
But just getting on and spinning the legs and just getting a feel for it. Because when you hop on the bike and it's hard to work at 60%, you're probably not going to have your best day the next day.
Yeah.
You're probably still a little too smashed, a little too overly fatigued. It's going to be maybe a 2-day trajectory before you get back to that next hard workout.
I like that Wednesday as being something like even like taku, especially if you're not sure how you're going to feel after the race.
And you probably know even before you get on the bike, man, I am still just so heavy and so lethargic and just not really feeling this, not motivated. So there will be other signs before you've even thrown a leg over the saddle.
Something to bring up is that he will, in this case, Dan will have gotten all the way up to peak fitness before this first event. Then we're talking about this kind of rinse and repeat pattern that he can do for the following events. There has to be a point, at some point where there's diminishing returns, or you start to fall off from that peak fitness, I assume, Chad.
Yeah,
you can't just do this forever, else we'd all be doing that.
That's kind of what a taper is. I mean, over the course of a taper, if it's a long taper anyway, a couple weeks, you do lose a bit of fitness, but you compensate by ditching more fatigue. So the amount of fatigue you lose outweighs the amount of fitness you lose, the amount of fitness you lose.
Yeah. So really, like,
but it's slight. It's nothing to concern yourself with. It's not. My race performance is going to tank because I lost a little of my fitness.
That's a trap, though, right?
Overall performance rises.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about two things intersecting, but performance is the real concern. Don't worry so much about freshness or fitness. Worry about how well you perform.
Yep. And we're looking at this as basically like over a month, kind of stretching that peak to a month rather than putting it on a single day. And this is like the best way that I've found personally. Like, this exact pattern is what I've done to be able to stretch out over a series, or even to go from one thing into national championships. I went from state championships or national championships into state championships with the same exact formula before, and it was really effective.
Did you win state?
I did. I was
job.
like Uncle Rico, from
Like
Napoleon Dynamite. But the thing about this is I found is that the biggest thing that I wanted to avoid was getting sick or doing too much, like you talked about. And it's easy because you've pushed yourself through a lot of training to get to this point. Right. So your body is pretty fatigued by the time you are into that specialty phase. Then hopefully what that taper is doing is that taper is going to drop that fatigue, hopefully. Let your freshness kind of come back up. Allow your immune
system to rebound.
Exactly, right.
Which is another thing. So we're assuming or hoping that the taper allows your, amongst other things, your immune system to kind of build back up.
Yep.
If, however, the taper's not long enough, or just you're still carrying a lot of fatigue, your immune system's still suppressed, you go do a hard event and then you follow it up with more training before those next couple of events, you're just running that risk the entire time that you're going to get sick. Somewhere in that span.
Yeah. So remember that's like a genuine risk. At least it is for me. You may have like wonderful genetics that just like punches every sickness away. But if you're in that situation, it's definitely something to just keep an eye on. So then to make sure that you aren't being overzealous, because if you're overzealous, then you might be making yourself, which is easy to do. You place well at the first race, suddenly all those Strava KOMs that you never thought were possible suddenly in your mind become possible. So you go out and chase those instead of actually staying disciplined. Easy to miss it.
So we did the week of kind of recovery, and now what about the week before the next race?
I would just repeat the taper week, especially if the taper week went well leading into that first event. And if it didn't, this would be the time to tweak things. Maybe you came into it feeling a little flat. Maybe you came into it feeling like you just had a little too much. Well, that wouldn't really be a problem. I like the idea of a racer showing up to an event, even if it's a C event, feeling like I'm ready to, well, even if it's a B event, feeling like I'm really ready to do some work.
So the recovery week, that's a lot of aerobic work.
It is.
They switch one of those out for I personally like Sleeping Beauty for that's like 115% FTP for 30 seconds. So pretty easy, but still you're
intensity.
Hitting it. Yeah. 45-minute ones, stuff like that.
Absolutely. In fact, that's probably a workout like that is what I would follow those tester workouts. Is something short and sweet but hard that gives you some depiction or some idea of the fact that I can do a fair amount of work, but don't run yourself into the ground by doing an hour and 15 or an hour 30-minute version of that workout.
Or longer intervals, right? Because you could do 115 isn't that hard. You could probably do 3 minutes at 115. But 30 seconds, you do. I think it's like 5 of them with 30 seconds off.
Yeah.
To me, that's just enough to like get the system
just
going.
Topping things off, just getting a feel or a sense of it. Inflicting the stress. I mean, it's basically a taper workout. That's what you're doing.
I can do that the day before a race.
Most riders can, and most riders benefit from it too.
So I'll recap in this case for Dan. Basically, Dan, after your first race, you'll have a week that is your week that you're really looking for recovery, and you're trying to test the water, so to speak, to make sure that you're not pushing too hard. The next week thereafter, you'll be following a recovery week or taper week that you were doing from your specialty plan. If you want to test the waters with something a little more intense, feel free to sub in something like Nate suggested, like Sleeping Beauty, something that's just a little bit more perhaps race specific to what you'll do, but something that isn't going to wear you down too much. And then give yourself, I would say, a day or two, depending on how you find you perform best coming into an event. For the next one, rinse and repeat throughout those 3, keeping in mind the fact that you have the first race, which is a 40 or a 60 mile, 40 mile, and then a 130 plus mile one. That last one, you'll really want to come in, and I find that on those bigger events like that, if I err, especially on the side of freshness, I feel like that's a helpful thing, just because it's going to be a big toll.
Yeah, and I said it's unlikely that you're going to the fitness you bring into this 6-week span is probably what you're going to bring out of it. That's probably the most likely scenario, but that's not to say that, maybe you're coming into this and you still have some growth to achieve. You do a race, that's a big kick in the ass. I mean, that can inspire some adaptation, and then you train a little bit, and then you do it again, and then you train a little bit, and then you do it again. You could actually emerge on the other side of that with a little better fitness than you came into it.
Yeah.
So I have one more scenario. So let's say that first week, they do he does the tester workouts, but then Saturday, Sunday comes around, and he feels good. What would be those Saturday, Sunday workouts?
Anything that somewhat or closely replicates the demands of whatever that next event is.
So what I'm thinking for Dan, since Dan's doing gravel is really it's just a ton of sweet spot.
It really is.
Yeah, it's just like
even
all
if you're
sweet
doing
spot.
a 40 mile or 60 mile one or a 130 mile one, you're gonna where it really matters in the 130 mile races when you're sitting there at sweet spot and have to hold in.
Yeah, you're climbing at sweet spot, and then and when you're on pack stuff, it's less. It's more aerobic. So I was thinking antelope. Antelope is 10-minute intervals with 5 minutes rest in between. There's a 90-minute version. It's all sweet spot. It's 5 intervals, and then depending on how fresh you are, you can go the minus versions and do an hour of antelope, which I think is like
4x10.
4x10, or I think there's even a 3x10.
Yeah.
If you're really tired, but that is it's like totally simulates.
It's a great way.
Gravel, and depending where you're on, 10-minute climbs, depending where you live, might be the exact length of your climbs.
Yeah. Sure. In Oregon, you can get anything. You can get really short rolling climbs, or you can get some really long ones.
And in that workout in particular isn't enough to totally bury you. So
yeah, exactly.
But in those little 2-week gaps, don't do anything epic. For sure not.
Like
no matter how good you feel.
Or 33 by. It's a 2-hour workout of 3x30s at a high percentage of threshold. It's like 148%.
That will be.
Don't do that one.
That's not the one to do.
Don't do that one.
No, not if you want to do well at your events.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're just looking to train through them, sure. But it doesn't sound like that's what's going on here.
It can be so tempting to use fitness. It's like a new toy, and you just want to use it.
Do it,
right?
And you think there's no end.
There's no ceiling ever.
I always hear Chad talk about this, and I always make the same mistake: is I don't rest, and I don't want to gain fitness the whole time, and I don't want to lose anything.
So fun to ride that wave. It just is.
It is, man. It's basically shutting down a good wave that you just caught surfing, and then just waiting for another one that you hope will come along, but you don't know. It's tricky, man. It
but
takes
you
a lot
do
of
know. I
self-control.
mean, it'll come.
That's a good point.
That's where the surfing analogy breaks down. We do know if we let ourselves rest, it will come.
If you like that video, you should subscribe to our channel. There's more where that came from. And even like the video down below with a thumbs up or leave us a comment.
If you want to see race analysis videos, click right over here. And if you want to get your coaching questions answered, click over here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. Trust us.
Just trust us.
We guarantee it.
Oh yeah, or your money back.
It's true. Take us up on it.